No, I did not read this book. It's been sitting on my shelf for 6 years now. But my bookshelf is right by my bed, and with this very obnoxious color and ironic title, it's been staring at me for months now until I started reading again. And that's how my booktube channel was born. Hi, my name is Elise, and welcome to my first wrap-up video. I read 16-ish books this month. I say ish because technically, if you look at my Goodreads, I read 19, but one of those I started in, what is the month before May? January, February, March, April? In April. So one of the books I started in April and then finished in May. And two of the books on my Goodreads were actually textbooks I finished that I really didn't have to finish, but I paid for my textbooks, so I thought, why not finish them? That's the kind of person I am. But yeah, of the 16-ish books I've read, a lot were good. And yeah, let's get into what I read. First book I read was Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily Danforth. I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I guess you can't really call it a classic, but it's kind of a classic. It's well known, whatever I'm trying to say. But yeah, it kind of has two parts to it, with the first part about the main character whose parents died suddenly in a car crash, and she is raised by her grandmother after that. But she's having these conflicting feelings about her friend, who is also a girl, and there's a lot of guilt in her because of that. And then the second half of the book revolves around the fact that the main character, whose name is escaping me right now, even though I just looked at it, she gets caught with another girl and gets sent to a gay conversion camp. The premise of the story was very interesting to me, but I was really conflicted about how I felt about it. Again, I said it was like two parts, like, yeah. But I felt like some of those parts really dragged on forever, and my attention span is like that big. So for the parts that did drag on, I just felt like I was reading forever. It took me a really long time to read, but I pushed through, and I don't want to say don't read it, because there were some really, really great moments in it. And I do think it's such a well-known LGBT book, especially one that revolves around conversion camps. But I don't know, it wasn't my favorite. The second book I read was Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I'd like to first say that this is a new favorite of mine, and I'm not going to do a great job giving a summary of it because, honestly, I don't even know how to summarize it. I think it's better if you go into it not even knowing what it's about. Not because it's like mysterious and surprising, it's just very character-based. It's about a girl, Frances, super perfectionist and really wants to get into a very good school. She loves this radio show, which is what the book is titled after. But yeah, she meets a new friend, and it's about their friendship and this radio show and the weight of school and all of that and sexuality, and it's just so well done. And I know that's not a convincing phrase just to say a book is well done, but there are so many aspects of this book that I have not seen in other books. First of all, the character is biracial and bisexual. I have never seen that combination before. If you have any books with that combination in a character, please leave it down below because I'd love to read more. But yeah, as someone who is biracial, I really appreciated that, and there were like explicit conversations about what it means to be biracial and like the feelings behind that. Regarding race and sexuality, I was super impressed with how diverse this book is. There were definitely some identities that we don't often see represented in books. There was, like I said, a bisexual character, there was a gay character, there was an asexual / demisexual / not really preferring labels kind of character. There's a lesbian character. I'm probably missing something, but yeah, there was a lot of diversity that you don't usually see individually in books, let alone all of those kinds of characters in one book. So I highly recommend. It is contemporary fiction, but I would definitely give it a try. After totally falling in love with Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, I decided to try some of her other books. And the first book I read from her was Solitaire, which was her debut. I think she wrote it when she was 17. And I don't want to say too much because I feel bad because I loved Radio Silence so much, but I did not like Solitaire at all. I can't even tell you what it's about because I don't know, and I don't know if that's because the book was confusing or if I just did not have any interest in it and it all just kind of, yeah. It's about a girl named Tori, something about solitaire. It says it's not a romance, but it turns out to kind of be a romance. I don't know. I didn't like it. I really didn't. Nothing against Alice Oseman. I loved her book, Radio Silence, and I will talk about her other books later. But yeah, this one was not for me. And I'd like to just say maybe it's because it was her first book and she wrote it when she was a teenager. And in her later books, you can definitely see how she's improved. So if you pick that one up, or if you've only picked that one up and didn't like it, try her other books. I promise they're much better. Sorry. And then after that, I read another one of her books because I knew there had to be more good stuff from her because I just loved Radio Silence so much. And I read the novella to Solitaire, even though I didn't like Solitaire, I read it anyways. It's called Nick and Charlie. And if you've heard of the graphic novel / webcomic series Heartstopper, also by Alice Oseman, it's basically prose writing featuring those two characters, Nick and Charlie. They are two boys who are in high school and they are dating. And yeah, I didn't like this one again. In both Solitaire and the novella Nick and Charlie, I just felt like Nick and Charlie's relationship was not healthy at all. In Solitaire, there's a scene with the main character and the sister, Tori, and she just blames the boyfriend for not taking care of his mentally unstable boyfriend. I don't know. It just felt so toxic to me and so, it's just too much pressure for high school students. I just did not like the way it was portrayed in the novella. I just couldn't care about it. I really didn't. But hold on, I will get back into Alice Oseman. Don't let those two books deter you because I read some more from her later on in the month and totally fell in love. Wait a second. I just looked at my Goodreads and apparently I didn't read the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman until June. This is my May wrap up, so I guess I won't be talking more about Alice Oseman. I'm sorry for not being nice to her books in this video. I'll just, even though I didn't read Heartstopper in May, I'll just say this. I loved Heartstopper, new favorite. I don't even read graphic novels. It's the first graphic novel I've read in probably like a decade. Highly recommend, so good. I was not expecting to like it at all since I didn't like Solitaire and Nick and Charlie, but it was so well done. And yeah, sorry Alice Oseman for my other criticism. Please read Heartstopper and Radio Silence. Excellent. The next book I read was All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. And I will admit, I picked this book up just because the cover was really pretty. And if I can somehow figure out how to do the thing where you put the cover right here, I'll put it there. I'm not good at editing videos, but if I don't figure out how to put the cover here, please look it up. It's gorgeous. Or better yet, read the book. Anyways, I got into the book not knowing what it's about. That seems to be a trend with me. I read books and I have no idea what they're about until I read them. But it's a memoir of George M. Johnson, who I'm forgetting, but I think he worked for places like BuzzFeed and Vice and stuff like that. But yeah, it's his memoir of his experiences of growing up both gay and Black. I really, really was moved by this. It was so touching and down to earth and honest. It was very hard to read at some points. It was a pretty short book, but it took me quite a while to read just because there was so much to process. And it wasn't the kind of book where you want to speed read. Like, I wanted to absorb every single detail. It was so well done. I was really impressed with the writing. So if you haven't read a lot of nonfiction and you want to read more, I would definitely recommend this memoir. It's easy to read literally, but the actual processing of what's going on in this memoir might be a little more difficult, but I really recommend it. It was so moving to me. And again, it has a pretty cover, which is always bonus points. And I actually think I saw on his Twitter that it's going to be a TV show soon or something like that. But so yeah, exciting. Next, I read Before I Die by Jenny Downham. I didn't like this one at all. I was reading it with a friend and she just could not finish it because it wasn't good at all. And the reason I was interested in reading it is because I watched the movie many years ago, back in the day when I was totally in love with Kaya Scodelario, because she's in the movie. And I was like a little kid when I watched it. I don't remember what it was about, but I didn't remember not liking it. But yeah, I hated the book. I really did not like it. It's about a girl with cancer, and already I feel bad saying I hate this book when it's about a girl with cancer. But yeah, it's about a girl, and before she dies, she has a list of things she wants to do. And yeah, I think that could have worked out if the characters weren't so insufferable. The main character, I just thought, again, I was trying to keep in mind the whole time that she was dying and probably had a lot of emotions, and this was her last leg of life, and I don't know. She was not pleasant. I just felt like she was so entitled and bratty, and like the whole book was just her going through her list, which was just, how can we break every rule and just cause destruction and leave my parents with all my mistakes? I don't know. I didn't like it. I did not like her friend, who was played by Kai Scolario in the movie, which was very sad to me that I didn't end up liking her. But yeah, I just hated the personalities. They just felt so distracted, and maybe that was part of the author's intention. Maybe that was her way of showing how this girl was processing her emotions, but I just felt frustrated the whole time. And I wasn't frustrated because she had cancer. I was frustrated because I didn't like the way she was treating people. And yeah, again, I really like character-based books, so for me to hate every single character, I just could not stand this book. Oh wait, also I would like to add, I did cry at the end of this book, but it's a sad book. Like, I don't know, I feel like if a book makes me cry, I should rate it higher, but like, it was about an inherently sad subject. That doesn't mean it was a good book or that it was written well. The writing, like, I felt like I was reading fan fiction the way it was written. Like the first paragraph, I wish I still had the book from the library. It was, read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. According to Goodreads, the next book I read was my Japanese history textbook. No, I will not be providing a review on it. Yes, I read it even though I didn't have to. And the next book I read was my sociology textbook. It was very interesting. It was Sociology of Sexualities. I learned a lot. It was very cool. But no, I'm not providing a review on that. You can take a sociology class. Highly recommend. I'm going to double major in psych and soc, so. The next book I read was All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. I'm going to start by saying I wrote a long review on this one. I don't usually write long reviews. I just had lots to say. The reason I had lots to say is because I gave it 1 star, and I usually don't give 1-star ratings. I feel really bad giving 1-star ratings, so there's usually lots of reasons if I feel the need to press that 1-star button on a book. This book was a mystery book. I usually don't read mystery. Not that I don't like mystery, I just don't really pick it up. But I was reading it for a book club. Every time I'm in a book club, I end up not liking the books, so maybe I should stop that. So this book is about Nicolette Farrell, who has grown up, left her hometown of Cooley Ridge, has established a new life for herself, has a job, she's engaged, all the good stuff, whatever. And towards the beginning of the book, she has to go back to her hometown of Cooley Ridge to take care of her ill father. But when she returns, she discovers that a girl she knew from childhood, Annalise Carter, has disappeared. Now, this is strange because 15 years before this, her best friend had disappeared too. So the book revolves around Nicolette trying to solve this mystery. But the interesting thing about this book is that it starts with day 15 and goes back to day 1. So it's basically told backwards. Now, that would be really interesting for a mystery book, right? Because usually mystery, you're trying to solved towards the end, but this is told at the end first. And I was very skeptical about how this would work, and I ended up not liking it, but I'll get into that. So first thing I didn't like was the title. It's called All the Missing Girls. It's about 2 missing girls. I know that's a minute detail, but I just had a different image of what was going to go on in this book. Something about that made me think a bigger thing would be revealed, like something outside this town or something outside these 2 disappearances would happen, something involving all of the missing girls, but no, it was just these 2 girls. Again, it's a small detail, but it really misled me because I thought there was going to be more. Like, I kept waiting for this twist that never happened. Another thing I didn't like, which again is a common pattern with me for why I don't like books, but the characters were so bad. Like I felt angry, like I was rageful while reading this book because I hated the characters so much. That like feeling is very rare for me. But yeah, the main character was just so selfish and dishonest, and I couldn't, like, I'm at a loss for words thinking back to this book how much I hated it. None of the characters seemed to care about anything. Like, again, like, we should be caring about the missing girls. Like, you'd think that's a thing we'd care about. Like, I don't know, but everyone just was out there for themselves. Like, they wanted to protect themselves. And then there was a fiance. She was engaged, yeah? And there was some, like, sketchy cheating. Like, no, not for me. There was no empathy in this book. And again, as a psych and social major, I love empathy. There was no empathy here. You'd think a book about disappearing persons would have some emotion or some sadness to it, but all of it just felt like, oh no, am I gonna get in trouble? What's gonna happen to me? Like, I hated it. I really, really hated it. I know other people, I was reading reviews, I know other people really liked this, especially the day 15 to day 1 narrative, but I felt confused, I felt angry, the characters were always angry, like, yeah, did not like this book. Oh, and I do remember when I was trying to write this book, I remember it's a mystery thriller, so there was supposed to be a twist at the end, especially with the way it was told, and I was gonna rate it higher because I was surprised by the end. Like, I wasn't expecting that. But then, like, when I really thought about it, even though I was surprised, I didn't enjoy a single part of the book. Like, there was nothing I liked. Like, you know, on the Libby app, if you have Libby, it says how long you've spent reading a book. I spent over 9 hours on this book, and those were 9 hours I did not enjoy and I will not get back. So, yeah. 1 star for me. After that, I read Clack When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I loved this. It was so good. It's been a while since I've read a book in verse. It's in verse, like poetry stanzas, but I thought it was a teeny bit hard to get into at first because it was in verse. I just haven't read a book like that in a while, so it took a bit of adjusting, but after I could, read it quickly and get into the flow of things, it was just so well done. It's told in 2 perspectives about 2 girls who had been affected by this plane crash that their father was in. And I don't want to say too much because I don't know how much of this would be considered spoilers. But basically, they do not live together. They don't know each other. Things happen. It's really, I think it's best if you go into this book not knowing much, because then the emotional aspects of it really hit so much harder. But the main thing to know is that there was a plane crash, their father dies, and yeah, it's about their connection and the processing of grief. I really loved this book. It had great racial and sexual representation. Also, one of the characters has a girlfriend named Dre who keeps little plants, and I really appreciated that for some reason. But yeah, I would really recommend this book. I thought it was a refreshing break from other kinds of contemporary books I've been reading, and the writing was beautiful, the characters were beautiful. By the end, I was crying. Totally would recommend this one. The next book I read was Coffee Boy by Austin Chant. It's a little tiny short book. I guess you would call it a novella. I don't know. It was like under 100 pages, I think. It was very short. But it's about a trans man who, after facing transphobia and ignorance in the workplace, he falls in love with a coworker, that kind of situation. And again, I don't want to say too much because it was so short. I don't want to get into any spoilers, but yeah, it's a little romance novel. It had good representation, but because it was so short, I just did not like the romance. It felt so quick and underdeveloped. I really appreciated the conversations about what it means to be trans and what a trans person might experience, especially in the workplace. But outside of those conversations, there wasn't much substance to this book. But I still think it was enjoyable if you want something quick to read. So I wouldn't rule it out. If you are interested, I would definitely pick it up. It would not take you long to read. But yeah, I really wanted more from it. But maybe that's just because I'm used to reading novels. Then I read Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I don't usually like short little poem books. It's a poetry book mostly about sex and sexuality and what it means to be a woman. But I was pretty impressed with it. Again, I don't think it was anything earth-shattering. When I read it in the moment, I really liked it, and then when I finished it, couldn't remember much. I definitely think, regarding the fact that it's a poetry book, I liked it in its entirety, like reading it cover to cover. Like there were no poems I wanted to pull out individually. But again, it was much better than I thought it would be regarding the fact that it was little tiny poems. In the book review I wrote for it, I basically kind of compared it to the idea of someone like looking at a piece of contemporary art that maybe is just like a square of color or a single line or something simple, whatever. And you look at it and say, that's so simple. I could have done that. And then the argument is, well, you didn't do it. That's kind of what I felt about this. Like, it didn't feel like fantastic. Like, I didn't finish the book thinking, this is the best author ever. It just felt like, well, anyone could have done this, but this is the person who did it. If that makes sense. I'm not saying it was bad. It just wasn't the best poetry I've ever read. But the content was good, and I thought it was nice. And there were illustrations, always bonus points for illustrations. The next book I read was How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. It was similar to All Boys Aren't Blue in the way that it was about the intersection of being both Black and gay, but it definitely had a different feel than George M. Johnson's book. It was, I don't know how to put it, it was more graphic. Not that All Boys Aren't Blue wasn't graphic, but there was just a different portrayal of emotions in this book. It is a memoir, so I'd like to keep in mind that this is someone's personal experiences, and it's not my right to say how he should have experienced things or what his actions mean or whatever. But I really did like this. I'm making it seem like I didn't. I really loved this book. It was so brutally honest, and Saeed Jones did not back away from any details. It was just down to earth. This is what happened. This is how I feel. It was what memoirs really need. It made you feel like Saeed Jones was telling the truth because it was so detailed, and not detailed to picture him in a good light. It was detailed in the way that it sounded like someone reflecting on his actions and experiences. I do think this memoir was a little bit more difficult to stomach than All Boys Aren't Blue. I highly recommend both. I really love them. But just if you are interested in this book, keep in mind that there's some very graphic scenes of violence, very graphic sex scenes. Saeed Jones makes some questionable choices in this book. I was reading other reviews. Not everyone liked that element of it. I don't really want to say much about it because this is someone's experiences in life. I don't think that Saeed Jones' choices in this book deterred from the message, because that was his way of dealing with things. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I think that could be triggering for some people. There's also blatant racism and homophobia, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this book if you are interested in learning more about someone's experiences with being both Black and gay. Finally, I read We Should All Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. It was super short. It's based on a TED Talk if you are interested in watching it. But basically, it's an introduction to feminism. I thought it was pretty well done, but I've taken classes before on feminism and women gender studies, so for me, I didn't feel like I learned much. I did enjoy reading about Adichie's personal experiences, but regarding feminism as to what it is and its definition, I didn't feel like I learned much, but that's because I have already been introduced to the scholarship of feminism. So if you're new to feminism and what it really means, I definitely think this is a great start. Again, it's pretty basic. It's the surface level to feminism, but it gives a very good overview of what feminism is, and it debunks some common myths of what people sometimes think feminism is, but really isn't. There's a lot of stereotypes when it comes to talking about feminism, and Adichie really attacks those and says why that's not true and why a feminist isn't some certain look, a certain kind of person. It could be anyone. I did wish there was a bit more about intersectionality and other aspects of feminism, like sexuality and race. Like I wanted it to go more in depth with those topics, but again, it's based on a TED Talk, and there's only so much you can say in a TED Talk. So I would recommend this if you are interested in feminism and may not know a lot already. Lastly, the other books I read were Love, Hate, and Other Filters, Letters to Montgomery Clift, The Kite Runner, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, and The Young Elites. I'm not going to say anything on those because I did another video about them, my Asian Readathon video, so check that out if you're interested. But yeah, those are the books I read this month. I hope something sounded interesting to you and maybe you will read it too. Again, I'm sorry, Alice Oseman, for the books I said that weren't good. Please read her other work. It's very well done. I promise. She's like my new favorite author right now. I think her new book, Loveless, just came out. I don't know if it's even out in the US. I don't think it is. There's always ebooks. Anyways, thank you for watching, and that is it. Goodbye. So the first book I read was The first book I read was The Miseducation of Cameron Poe.